bold fabric colors, fusible web, release paper, creative cutting. These are the elements of fusible fabric collages, art quilts that have character. For this two-part series, I've welcomed my friends and guests Laura Wazalowski and Frida Anderson, international quilt artists who share technique yet have their own style. Frida, your artwork is inspired by nature.
Yes, Nancy. Every day I walk with my little dog and I'm inspired by the woods and the rolling fields around my neighborhood.
Now, Laura, you take a little different approach. Same colors, same technique.
I usually am inspired by the fabric scraps that I have and the colors, the wonderful colors I have. So I improvise and make up my designs as I go along.
Laura and Frida will share with us a workshop approach to this expressive technique. Art Quilts, Fusible Collage Workshop. That's what's coming up next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zeman, is made possible by Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effect threads, because creativity is never black and white. Koala Studios, fine sewing furniture custom built in America. Clover, makers of sewing, knitting, quilting, and embroidery products for over 25 years. Experience the Clover difference. Amazing Designs and Class A Needles.
During this episode, or these two episodes on art quilts, we'll be sharing with you small little quilts that Frida and Laura have created and that you can create too. And the first thing we're going to look at is the fabric, and since this is a fusible collage technique, the type of fusibles and how to fuse them.
Right. So the first thing we want to choose is our fabrics, and I like to use the hand-dyed fabrics or the batiks because the color goes all the way through them. But if you can use other 100% nicely woven cotton fabrics as well, just make sure you wash them first.
Fun colors. I mean, that's what I love about your
bright
work.
Colors,
right.
Mm-hmm. Keeps us happy.
And then this is fusible technique, so we're going to talk about this, and this is the key of it.
It is, and so I use a fusible that has a paper backing on it, and when I apply the fusible, I apply it to the whole piece of fabric. I want to make sure that my fusible stays inside the shape of my fabric, and I want to use a hot, dry iron, no steam when you're applying the fusible. When you apply the fusible, it heats up and you want to let it cool down. And I'm going to work without the paper on the fabric, so I'm going to cut out. I'm going to peel the paper off and then cut out my shapes. One thing to avoid is to make sure you don't overfuse.
And I have done that.
Yes,
a lot.
And what happens is it turns glassy, and you can see that as opposed to opaque.
And no steam.
No steam. We're going to use steam later, but not when you're applying the fusible to the fabric.
So after it's dried, then you're going to remove the paper and save it.
And save it, because we're going to design on it and we're going to refuse to it.
So you just
peel the little edge back, and it should peel very nicely right off, just like that.
So the first collage technique we're going to feature is this cute little Midwestern landscape, and you're going to learn in the workshop how to draw this out, 8.5 by 11, which you have done.
Right, and I'm going to show you a technique of creating the stripy units in the fields. So the first thing that I did was I took my fabrics and I cut them on the bias, pretty different colors so I could get different colors in my fields, and then I have cut them about a 1/2 inch wide, and I traced around the shapes of my fields on my release paper.
Yeah, you can trace in pencil or let's say a
marker,
permanent marker,
or even colored pencil will work.
And you've separated them.
I have, so that I can fuse right on the paper, and I am going to do my fusing technique where you slightly overlap your edges. So I have just lovingly tapped my fabric onto my release paper, and it will stick right there.
And I'm going to move this from the cutting board and then just...
And then slightly overlap my edges when I fuse them together so that the top one sticks to the one underneath.
Okay.
And that is a stripy fusing technique.
Fast.
Yeah,
right
very fast.
Right on this paper.
Right.
And let me just do one more just for for fun because...
And I want to alternate the color so I get that depth.
Depth of field.
Right, exactly. And I want to use different colors for different parts of the fields. And here you can see that I have all 5 of those done out in different colors. And one of the advantages of this technique is because I fused right on top of my drawing, that drawing is going to transfer to the back of my fused fabric. So when I go to cut it out, I have a line to follow.
Very clever.
Yes.
Very clever. And it's not a mirror image, it's the exact design that you've drawn. So that's the best part about it.
One of the things I want to keep in mind is that I give myself a little bit of extra so that when I assemble them together, that the shapes will slightly overlap one on top of the other.
Now to know how they're going to assemble, you just put your release paper over
on top
your
of the pattern, and then I can reassemble that back together. So I created the sky and the fields both with stripy units.
And look at the great dimensions. So what a great technique for the first one.
Right.